Okay, today I'm going to show you my favorite iPad app of all time. It's called Procreate. Procreate. It's this little feather down here at the bottom, kind of colorful icon. So before I go into the app and show you around just on some of the basic tools, I want to show you Procreate has an education site now to give you some ideas on how you can use this in the classroom. It's a really nice looking website. There's some lesson ideas. And it's education.procreate.art. And then some great PDFs you can download. I also want to show you a website. It's Sylvia Duckworth. She's done lots of work in sketchnoting. She's actually a former French teacher, I believe. I've met her. She's really nice. She's got 2 books that you can get that kind of are step-by-step sketchnoting. And a great link that I've done even with kids is to go to the Sketchnoting Fever link that she has up here. And she has a ton of of YouTube videos where she kind of goes through a tutorial. I'm going to open one up just to show you what it looks like. Let's do school icons. She's got Google Slides and a video on YouTube that you can follow on how to draw certain icons. So there's her school ones. I'm going to click on that video and show you what it looks like real quick. And she basically goes through and shows you how to draw each one. She's got a grid there in Procreate. But by the end of a really quick lesson, your kids can feel really pumped up about how well they can draw. And this doesn't necessarily have to be in Procreate. It could be on a piece of paper. That works too for sketchnoting, so keep that in mind. But yeah, tons of great content here. And it is my favorite drawing and painting app by far. I've tried almost all of them. The only ones that have come close, there's one called Adobe Fresco that's pretty good, and then another one called Paper that I like, but really Procreate has become my favorite. When you first open it up, you're going to see your gallery of things you've created. This is also where you're going to start a new file, and I use Procreate for my notes. I use it for doodling. I use it for planning things out, but you can also open up a photo from your camera roll to be your canvas, or you can hit the little plus sign up in the top right and you're going to get some choices of canvas size. And you can see there's some standard ones there. You can do screen size. A lot of times I start with a square if I know I'm going to share it on social media or something like that. So I'm going to click screen size for right now. It opens up to a canvas. Just a blank white canvas. You can really quickly change the color of your canvas. You can click on, I'm going to go through these tools up in the top right first. The first one is your brush. And the next one is a smudge tool. Then you have an eraser. And then you have your layers menu, which is really important. We'll talk a little bit more about later. And then the last one is the color of your brush. So I'm going to change that to a darker black color. And then inside of brushes, you have, I've got a ton downloaded, but it comes with a many that are really great on its own. So sketching are kind of some different pencils. And there's inking, drawing, painting. Those are some cool ones. Artistic, calligraphy, airbrushing, textures. Grid is a cool one. You can actually use grid a couple different ways. You can actually paint a grid onto your canvas like I'm doing right now, if you want to keep things nice and lined up, and then go into your layer menu and create a new layer. I'm going to do that, create a new layer. And then where you see the little N on the layer, that means normal. There's lots of different layer modes you can play with later on as you get into more advanced Procreate features. It really ties really closely with Photoshop. If you've ever used Photoshop and its layers and all the layer modes, They work just the same way. You see a little slider though that says opacity. I'm going to lower the opacity of my grid that I painted there and go on to layer 2 and continue through these brushes. There's abstract, charcoals, elements, spray paints, touch-ups. Vintage is kind of cool for some backgrounds. Then there's some light brushes, industrial, organic, water. I'm going to go up here to sketching again and do a 6B pencil. So you can see right away, works just like a pencil. I'm using an Apple pencil, which is nice because you can actually turn the Apple pencil on its side and you can actually shade like you would with a regular pencil. Or if I press lightly, it's going to draw a thin line. If I press with a little more pressure, it's going to widen that brush out. But if you just have a regular stylus, that works too. It's awesome. You get a few more features if you have an Apple pencil. If you ever make a mistake, you can either hit the undo over here on the bottom left, a little arrow. There's an undo and a redo arrow. I usually use the gesture 2-finger tap, and that will undo each brush stroke at a time. So always easy to jump back and forth between things if you ever mess up. Because I have people tell me, James, I can't draw. I can't even draw a straight line. Procreate has you covered. You can draw a line pretty straight, but if you hold down your stylus, you can actually, Procreate turns it into an exactly straight line. It works for curves too. If I hold down the stylus, it'll turn into a curve. Works for polygons. And if I draw one close to a square, you can see if I touch my finger down, it turns it into a perfect square. If I do a circle, it'll turn it into an oval that's completely connected. And if I touch my finger down with my other hand, it turns it into a perfect circle. So really quickly you can draw shapes that we all know, like triangles and squares and rectangles, but you can also do polygons with a bunch of different sides. Yeah, it's a very cool auto draw feature. So if you want to get rid of everything on a layer, you can actually take 3 fingers and kind of scrub the canvas, and it'll erase the entire layer. Another feature I want to show you that's kind of an auto draw thing is you can actually color shapes by just dragging the color in from the color palette up in the top right. You just choose the color you want and then drag it to your shape and let go. If it doesn't work, you can always just kind of hold your finger or your stylus there and then scrub back and forth, and it'll change the threshold, which might make your selection work. So it's just a cool, quick feature for coloring your drawings. Let me go back into my brushes here. I'm going to do a painting one. Let's do oil paint. I'm going to change the color here. This top slider is your brush size, so it's a really easy, quick access to change the size of your brush. And the slider beneath it is opacity for the brush, so it's separate from the layer opacity. It's actually how much of that brush is, it's kind of more like a pressure of how much of your brush is going down. So top slider is your brush size, the bottom one is opacity. Brushes are really cool especially if you have an Apple pencil and you have a pressure sensitive stylus. You can do some really cool stuff. So here's just a little drawing I'm doing. I'm not even really trying to do anything, just kind of putting some different colors down. Show you how the smudge tool works. The smudge tool, if you tap it, will actually open up your same brushes that you use for the brush tool, except you're going to be using this brush that you choose here to actually do your smudging. And if you're using an Apple pencil, Procreate is smart enough to know that your finger is actually doing the smudging. So you can use your finger to smudge and your Apple pencil as the brush. So you can get some cool gradients this way. Eraser works just like the brush and the smudge tool. Whichever brush you choose is going to be your eraser. So if I want kind of a rough eraser, I could go into that same painting menu, choose one. There you go. Another cool feature in Procreate, it's always recording your brush strokes. So if I go up here, let's talk about the tools up on our top left over here. So we can go back to the gallery. We know what that is. This wrench is where we have our actions, so we can insert photos in from here. So if I go to insert a photo, it'll open up my camera roll. I can actually, let's insert this play button, and I can size it, rotate it, let go. And when I do that, it's actually going to create a new layer with that imported photo. So I can erase parts of it, and you'll see the other layers show through. Another thing that I will do oftentimes is if I have a photo I want to trace, I can actually go in, change the opacity of that layer. So now you can kind of see that play button kind of coming through. Let's put a layer on top of it. So I'm going to trace that image really quickly. And then go back in, and then I can just uncheck it if I don't want that layer to show up, or I can swipe to the left and delete that layer. Let's go back into the actions menu. So we got insert a photo. You can actually add text in Procreate. Which is really cool. I'm going to type the word cool. Actually, if you hit the little A and the capital A and lowercase a, you go into the other section of the text tool. You can change the font, the size. You can change whether it's centered or not, just like many other tools that you have. I'm going to hit the selection tool up here, and I can size that. I got the little arrow up here in the top. I can rotate it. I can actually go down to the bottom and distort it. Use a warp. So you can do some really cool text features. Go back to uniform. Back in the actions menu, we have canvas. You can do a lot of stuff in the canvas menu. One that I'm going to show you is animation assist. But first I'm going to go down here where it says drawing guide. I can turn on a grid right there too, and you can edit this drawing guide. You can also do isometric drawing, perspective drawing, and symmetry. Symmetry is cool because you can turn on assisted drawing, and then we'll do radial. And now when I go in and draw, it's going to do that with symmetry across all those sections there. Kind of a cool feature, way to easily create some cool designs. Just kind of reminds me of like those old spirograph type things. Let's go back into that assisted drawing, edit drawing guide. I'm going to turn assisted drawing off. I'm actually going to turn the drawing guide off. We have share, the share menu. That's really important. You have a bunch of different two-dimensional image format types that you can export to, JPEGs and PNGs. Especially if you're going to do a transparent drawing, PNG is good for that. Because you can always go over into the layers menu and turn off the background color, and you have a transparent drawing. You can also change the background color from that same layers menu. Down at the bottom though, you can export as an animated GIF. I'm going to show you that in a minute. Under video in this menu, you can watch a time-lapse replay of everything you've done. You can see everything I've done right here. You can actually export that as a video file to your camera roll. Then you've got preferences and a help menu. So I'm gonna clear these layers out. Delete. Can't delete the last one, just clear it. So if I go back to Canvas and turn on animation assist, you'll see a little thing pop up in the bottom. It says play, settings, and add frame. I'm going to actually create an animation really quickly. First, draw a little circle. Then I'm going to hit add frame. And you can see it automatically adds onion skinning. And what I'm doing by adding a frame, I'm actually adding layers. If you open up the layer menu right now, it's going to show a layer for each one of those circles that I've drawn. But it's kind of hard to do animations going through the layer menu. It's much easier to do it with the animation assist. And once I've done that, I can hit play and preview that. It's going to loop back and forth. I can go to settings and actually change frames per second. I can do ping pong so it goes back and forth. some other features that you can get into if you really like animating. Now that I've done this though, I can go to, since my animation is kind of small, I can go to Canvas and resize, crop and resize. And I'm going to now when I go to export, share, and do an animated GIF, it's just my drawing since I got rid of the rest of the canvas there. And I can do a transparent background and do web ready for a smaller file type. And then once this is exported, it goes to your camera roll. You can use these in Google Slides and Google Docs and other applications. Let me go back to gallery. This is just a drawing I've been working on. Just kind of give you an idea of how the layers work. So I've got some buildings that I drew there. And if I open up the layers menu, you can see I've got one with kind of these highlights on there and some stars in the sky. Got the buildings on another layer. And kind of that background sunset on another layer. So those are all in order. If I change the layer, if I change the order of them, you can see how it affects it. I can put this on top. You can also go into the layer type. Some cool features if you just by changing the layer type. One that I like to use a lot is multiply if I'm going to use it on a canvas and I want the canvas to show through a little bit. Go to gallery again. Start a new drawing here. Another thing I can do, if I draw a couple shapes, could be anything. What if I want to select one of these drawings that I have here? I can't select the whole layer. I can go to the selection tool up here, do freehand, draw a selection around that, go to the selection tool right next to the pointer tool next to the selection tool, and now I've got just this triangle that I can edit, rotate, I can move around. And once I've done that, it's still in the same layer. I could also select that. I can always go into duplicate layer and it'll do 2 there. And now I've got a duplicate of everything on that layer. Let's talk about some things that you can use Procreate for. So I'm going to go to gallery. I've created a whole bunch of GIFs that I use inside of Google Slides and Google Docs. Basically all I did was just draw an exclamation point 5 or 6 times, and now I have a kind of a jiggly animated exclamation point. That's really easy to do. You can trace over Bitmojis or logos, any kind of things you want to make there. I've also got some sketch notes that I've made, and this is really different depending on your own style. Mine are really kind of sketchy, and it's not really for other people, but it's for me to remember things. I write down things that I remembered. Sometimes I take pictures and make those parts of the sketch note. Leah Duckworth has 2 books, and she will tell you if you meet her that she is not an artist. So like she has just kind of taught herself to draw simple drawings. You'll notice some of her things when I pull them up here on her website, and they'll probably be familiar to you. But here are some of the things that she kind of shows you how to draw different banners. She has some great YouTube videos that show you how to draw really quick icons when you're doing sketch noting. There's another one. And you can see I've got multiple layers in here. I love that I can, if I just add a layer on top, I can do something. If I don't like it, I can always go back in and delete that layer and not delete the entire drawing. Here's one I did for a conference. Took a picture of the skyline of Louisville that I took and traced it. There's Churchill Downs, the Art Center. And then over here on the right, you can see all the layers kind of built up over time as I created this drawing. Added color.